The following is a special presentation from KDRV KDKF Newswatch and is brought to you by Premier Auto Center, Grants Pass.
Из такой далекой страны, но такой близкой для нас.
You are from the country which is far from this place.
From the rogue to Russia, on the Newswatch in the Soviet Union. Now, here is Ron Brown.
Grants Pass is about as typical a Southern Oregon city as you could ask for. It still takes pride in calling itself the All-America City, an honor it won several years ago. And this All-America City now has a sister city in a very unlikely place, the Soviet Union. With the crumbling of the Berlin Wall and other symbols of the Cold War, the world is changing, and now Grants Pass is part of that change. Come with us tonight as we see how the sister city relationship developed as we go from the rogue to Russia.
Rubtsovsk is a city in Siberia, the vast Asian part of the Soviet Union, half a world away from Southern Oregon. And as different as the two places are, they found some common ground through an interesting route. Early this year, Josephine County residents were busy searching for a sister city. Galice resident Cindy Patterson told them about Rubtsovsk. Patterson and her family spent 2 months in the Soviet city. And the Pattersons also hosted a group of rafters from Rubtsovsk on an exchange. And with the thawing of the Cold War, Patterson said Rubtsovsk might make a great sister city. But not everyone liked the idea. Lingering Cold War feelings led some Josephine Countyans to challenge the sister city plan.
We're opposed to this establishment of a sister city relationship with any city inside the USSR until the Soviet rhetoric on glasnost and perestroika has been matched by deeds of implementation.
The people in charge weighed all the input and went ahead and drafted a sister city agreement with the leaders of Rubtsovsk. That done, it was now time to see the place in person. And in late August, an official delegation went on the visit. Grants Pass city and community leaders joined 2 area high school students for the trip, and we tagged along too, and what a trip it was. After some 16 hours on planes, we arrived in Moscow, the Soviet capital, for our first glimpses and impressions of Soviet life. But the traveling was not over. Rubtsovsk is about as far from Moscow as Grants Pass is from Washington, D.C. So after another flight to the regional capital, we truly discovered traveling Soviet style. We felt every bump and pothole of the rutted Russian roads. And we noticed some other differences too, like only 3 gas stations on a 300-mile ride. And instead of Ford, Chevys, and Hondas, we saw Volgas, Moskviches, and Ladas. At last, the delegation reached Rubtsovsk and a warm welcome in Lenin Square. Rubtsovsk is an industrial city of some 176,000 people without a single tourist hotel. So the Grants Pass delegation stayed in private homes with Russian families. A great way to get a first-hand look at life here. Rubtsovsk is a place straddling the line between the old and new. Old log houses still fill the spaces between apartment buildings. It's a remnant of the days before the Russian Revolution. Apartments are usually 3 or 4 rooms. Furniture is compact and space is cramped. But rent is cheap, only 5 to 10% of the average monthly income of 300 rubles a month, or about $50. By comparison, the U.S. dollar will buy 6 Russian rubles at the official exchange rate. But many people are taking advantage of an opportunity to build and own their own homes. But the quality of private construction is sometimes much better than the government-built apartments, and the wait is often much shorter. An apartment building usually takes 2 years or more to complete. Another source of frustrations for many people is the lack of variety in state-run stores. There seems to be adequate food, but the best vegetables are grown in private gardens and sold in outdoor markets. And this is an economy where food is usually available, especially in agricultural areas, but in short supply in Moscow and other major cities. It's largely due to poor distribution systems. Well, with all the systems' inadequacies, you might think people would just give up. But the Russians are hardy people, having lived with adversity most of their lives. The memory of World War II is still very much alive in the Soviet Union, even here in Rubtsovsk. In fact, it was World War II that probably had more than anything to do with the future of Rubtsovsk. Factories that manufactured vital agriculture and war equipment moved from the war front in the west to the safer lands in the east. And almost every city, town, and village in the Soviet Union has a memorial to the millions who died in World War II. In Moscow, a newlywed couple continues a Russian tradition of placing a bouquet on the tomb of the unknown soldier outside the Kremlin walls. And in Rubtsovsk, the hundreds who died are also given a place of honor. But while Soviet citizens recognize the past, they certainly don't live in it. Rubtsovsk is an example of a place trying to keep up with modern times. Electric, non-polluting buses take workers by the thousands to offices and factories every day. Heat and hot water are produced at central locations and carried to hundreds of apartment buildings by a massive system of pipes. And yes, television is a daily part of Soviet life. Soviets may not spend as much time watching TV as we do, but they are taking to other American pastimes. The Grants Pass delegation joined their hosts in a game of softball. No real attempt was made to keep score, and since there were no losers, the pressure was off and goodwill came out on top. Outdoor activities are a big part of recreational life for many people in this region. After weeks of rain, the warm sunshine brought out a Siberian delicacy, mushrooms. Host families and their American guests took to the woods where they gathered a small mountain of the edible fungi. A picnic on a lakeshore near Rubtsovsk gave the group from Grants Pass a further glimpse into the lighter side of Soviet life. Limited cultural and entertainment options make social gatherings a prime escape for many Soviet citizens. On the night before the American delegation left, a special music review was staged featuring amateur dancers and musicians from Rubtsovsk's factories. Featured was a new composition, a new song in honor of Rubtsovsk. Rubtsovsk may be far from the center of the revolution sweeping the Soviet Union, but the people here are watching closely as 70 years of socialism undergoes its biggest transformation yet.
That transformation won't be an easy one. We've already seen plenty of news reports about the upheaval in the Soviet Union, some evidence of which we saw for ourselves on our trip from the road to Russia. But stay with us tonight as we continue to explore Grants Pass's sister city, its accomplishments, its problems, and next, the places where its people go to work every day. At either end of the road to Russia connection, you'll find concerns about the economy. Here in the Grants Pass area, the continuing battle over the timber supply issue has forced the shutdown of several mills in the Grants Pass area in the past several years. And that's cast a cloud of concern over the area's economic future. But that's similar to some of the concerns that are in the Russian city of Rubtsovsk, Grants Pass' sister city. Perestroika, the restructuring of the Soviet economy, has workers concerned there as well.
This is the final assembly line for the Altai tractor factory. More than 21,000 men and women produce one of the Soviet Union's most famous industrial trademarks here, the Challenger tractor. The Altai factory forms the economic backbone of Rubtsovsk. Each year, the Altai plant produces some 30,000 farm and logging tractors. But the changing economy of the Soviet Union presents some problems for plant managers who can no longer count on parts or materials from other Soviet plants. Many plants that were once obligated to supplying Soviet factories are now looking abroad for trading partners and new technology. The Altai tractor plant has also spawned some other industries in Rubtsovsk. Nearly 6,000 men and women are employed at the Rubtsovsk Tractor Machine Company. This company produces plows and other farm implements. Another key industry is a plant that makes generators and electric motors. Many are used in the production of tractors. Others are exported, bringing badly needed cash into the Soviet economy. One company in Rubtsovsk that is making progress in modernization is this furniture factory. Company officials say they'd like to be able to produce solid wood furniture, but the equipment and technology is only available from Europe. Problem is, rubles to buy the equipment cannot be spent outside the Soviet Union. So company officials are attempting to trade products for technology.
So usually now, when we find a partner, the partner gives us that raw material we need and like the certain amount I need, but then he asks for furniture.
Another key industry in Rubtsovsk is the construction trade, but it's an industry bothered perhaps more than any other by shortages. When the Grants Pass delegation was taken to a building project, no workers were at the site. We were told that the crane was not operating due to a shortage of gasoline and no concrete was available. But the shortage of workers is also a problem, serious enough that one project employs jail inmates. Another problem, at least from the American point of view, is construction standards and the quality of workmanship. And those waiting for apartments complain that it often takes years to find a vacancy. Beyond Rubtsovsk, farms spread from horizon to horizon. 30 years ago, this almost flat region was a grassy plain. But an intensive tree planting effort has produced row upon row of birch forest, protecting the land against winds which would carry away soil or precious winter snows needed to help water the crops in the spring. A foundation of the Russian economy has always been agriculture. About an hour's drive outside Rubtsovsk, this collective farm regularly exceeds its production quotas. The farm has nearly 3,000 employees, most of whom live in a village near the farm. A dry spring that stunted wheat growth turned wet in July and August, leaving fields too soggy to harvest and the wheat mildewed. So a frantic harvest is underway to salvage what is left. Rubtsovsk citizens appear to be generally satisfied with housing, food, and employment, but the gridlocked Soviet economy is causing turmoil in other parts of the country. The American delegation was confronted by this demonstration upon their arrival at a Moscow hotel. Guides say this scene would not have been permitted just a couple years ago. Dozens of homeless people are appealing for Moscow's help to find more housing and food. Rubtsovsk, 2,000 miles to the east, appears to have escaped much of this discontent so far. But a sign of the constant search for material goods shows up every Sunday morning in this empty lot on the city's north side. Rubtsovsk residents call this the black market. To the American delegation, it resembles a weekend flea market.
It's difficult to say just where the present and future economic changes will take the people of Rubtsovsk and the Soviet Union. It's just as hard to say what the future holds for the economy of Southern Oregon. In both places, the social changes are coming along with economic changes. When we come back, we'll take a further look at life in a Soviet city, and we'll even go to school with some Soviet school children as our trip from the road to Russia continues. Any city anywhere has its share of accomplishments and its share of problems. Grants Pass and its sister city of Rubtsovsk share some common concerns on the social front. Both struggle with money and resources to tackle community problems, and both are worried about substance abuse and its part in crime problems. But both are working hard to make sure that their kids are ready for the future.
There's probably nothing like it in the American education system, certainly not in Southern Oregon. Every year on September 1st, Soviet school children put on their best clothes, flowers in hand, celebrate the new school year with a day of knowledge. Students in Rubtsovsk's 22 schools were introduced to their teachers while anxious parents watch. One of the youngest students rings a bell to signal the beginning of a school year that will run to the end of May. Russian students begin the first grade when they're about 7 years old. The oldest students, usually 11th graders, have the honor of handing out first readers to the youngest students. Grants Pass Mayor Candy Bartow had her own words of encouragement to the Soviet students.
Study hard and have fun. Пожалуйста, учитесь хорошо и хорошо проводите свое свободное время. Спасибо.
The Soviet emphasis on education begins at the earliest age. Rubtsovsk has dozens of kindergarten and daycare centers. In most families, both parents work, so daycare is a key thread in the social fabric. You get the clear feeling here that children are well cared for, but they're also allowed to have fun. The day before school begins, older students gather a few kilometers outside the city for a day of sport activities. This is not your regular Olympic-type event. If you want some fun, try playing blind volleyball. Put up a sheet or blanket between the teams. And if you ever felt like you were all thumbs putting up a tent, you might try it like this team, pitched on its side with the floor to the sky. And with the rafting tradition in Rubtsovsk, a dry land raft rally seems a natural. The spirit of cooperation shown at the Field Sport Day also shows up again when the 3 American teenagers in the delegation hiked into the Altai Mountains with their Russian hosts. There, the international group hiked to the top of one of the highest peaks, raising both the American and Russian flags in a show of friendship and cooperation.
I made some lifelong friends there, and I just hope that we can open the doors enough to where we can travel easier someday in the future.
People just took you right in, you know. You didn't know somebody, but you felt like you knew them for 1,000 years.
The Russians and the Southern Oregonians certainly shared many positive experiences, but they also spent some time talking about the downside of life. Roads and streets continue to plague city officials and Russian motorists. Most of the summer, a portion of the city's central heating and hot water system was disabled while repairs continued. And crime, which draws a lot of resources from the budgets of most cities, takes on a different flavor here. We spoke with Police Chief Simeon Pavlovich. Like the drug problem blamed for most of the crime in Josephine County, Pavlovich says alcohol causes most of the trouble his department has to deal with.
As a rule, children who study very bad, who are brought up not in a wrong way, just in most cases, such children are from the families whose parents are just drug takers or alcoholics, and such children very often become criminals.
Traffic patrol is also a key role for the city's police force. While there are strict laws for motorists, we observe that many drivers appear to disregard speed limits and pedestrian crosswalks. Traffic control may be a continuing difficulty, but one of the bright spots for Rubtsovsk residents appears to be the city's library system. There are 9 library branches scattered throughout Rubtsovsk. And now, the Rubtsovsk Library has some new books to show off, courtesy of the Josephine County Library.
A literary heritage is not the only thing that Rubtsovsk and Grants Pass residents have in common. They also share a rich religious background. And recent changes in the Soviet Union show that religion is undergoing a resurrection.
More and more citizens of Rubtsovsk and many other Soviet cities are turning from 70 years of communist atheism to traditional Russian Orthodox doctrine. And a brand new law prevents the government from interfering in religion. Father Nikolai is pastor of the only church in this city of 176,000 people.
Все мои обращения к ним в отношении ремонта, либо и отвергать.
To help our church. Sometimes they help to repair our church. Though they are communists, but still they help us very much.
Most of the parishioners appear to be elderly, often standing for hours to hear the service in the old Russian dialect. But many choir members are young. Father Nikolai says 2 years ago he performed about 3 weddings a year. He now does about 15 a week. Another sign of the increasing interest in religion may be seen in cemeteries. Older tombstones display red stars indicating Communist Party affiliation, but many newer graves boldly display the cross of the Russian Church. And no doubt, more changes are on the way.
And now people on the road and in Russia have a chance to closely follow the changes affecting each other. The sister city agreement linking Grants Pass and Rubtsovsk is by no means a one-shot deal. We'll take a look at the future of Grants Pass's relationship with its Siberian sister city when we return. If you had told people in Grants Pass a year ago that they'd have a sister city in the Soviet Union, you'd have got some pretty funny looks from people on the street. But what seemed so unlikely then is a reality now, all written down in black and white.
Ну что, Нина, вы что? Ну, разрешите поздравить тогда.
With that, Grants Pass, Oregon and Rubtsovsk, Siberia parted the Iron Curtain and became sister cities. Under the sister city agreement signed by both mayors, exchanges will take place next year, with the host cities' committees paying the expenses of the touring group within that host country. Next summer, officials of Rubtsovsk are expected to be in Grants Pass. Then in 1992, the invitation is out for the Grants Pass group to return to Rubtsovsk to help celebrate the Soviet city's centennial. Delegations in the future are likely to include student and cultural groups, industry and civic leaders, and city officials. The visit of the Grants Pass group was widely hailed in the Soviet press, from the Rubtsovsk daily Communist Call newspaper to all the domestic news broadcast of Radio Moscow on August 27th.
This is Radio Moscow. Here's the news.
Rubtsovsk residents were warm and friendly to the Grants Pass delegation and seemed anxious to share in the sister city relationship.
I think that the life of all the citizens of Rubtsovsk will be more interesting and will have more advantages in association with the Americans, and it's very important for us. I think it's a good opportunity to learn about each other more than we knew before, and I think we'll work together and stand for peace.
6 days of travel to and from Rubtsovsk and the memories made there left a strong impression on members of the American group, who say the effort to break down decades of misunderstanding will pay dividends in the future.
The whole thing was just wonderful. The people were great. I felt so comfortable. It felt like going back home.
That's what the whole program is about, is going out and touching others with the magic we've been touched with.
Both mayors, Candy Bartow of Grants Pass and Lev Korshinov of Rubtsovsk, have high hopes for the future.
So I think we've gone far beyond anything that was expected of us. We've made a number of contacts in both directions now, and I think we're going to see a lot of new things coming out of the whole adventure for us.
I come to the conclusion that we have a lot to learn from you now to solve our problems, and maybe we have something that you can take from us and to learn from us.
Now the official documents are signed, but what will become of this association, this city-county, sister-city relationship? If no further contacts are made, only memories in the minds of those who have met and shared their lives together. But perhaps people reaching out to people will further strengthen Soviet-American ties. We'll give you more glimpses of those ties and friendship as we leave you this evening. Thanks for watching, and good night from Russia to the road.
I'm Ron Brown of the Newswatch. We'd like to offer a special thank you to Premier Auto Center for making this program and our trip to Russia possible.
From the Road to Russia has been brought to you by Premier Auto Center, Grants Pass.